Okay, we're going to look at our card slots. Now you can see I've added my interfacing onto my fabric, and I've added it in the centre so that it's equidistant either side. It's 3/8 of an inch narrower either side. Now the easiest way to do this is to mark your fabric on the reverse. So take the measurements from your pattern piece and mark them onto the back, onto the wrong side of your fabric. Always put a T at the top so you know which is the top, and this is the top of your pattern piece. So you know exactly which orientation you've got everything going. Now, the classic thing when people do this is that they do that and then they start folding. But actually the folds on this are the wrong way for the folds on this, because this is upside down. So if you want to start folding at this point, turn your panel over. I always make all of the folds in my template so that I know I've got everything right. I know that it's sitting properly. These look like card slots. Everything is good. But if you try and do those folds this way, then actually this is going to end up being the front of your card slot. So turn your pattern piece over, and then you can follow which way the folds go. So starting at the top, and I'm going to put a T on the top of my panel there again. This first line, and I'm not giving you the measurements in the videos, the measurements are all in the pattern, is going to be folded this way, because that's what it says on my template and in the pattern. So I'm going to make that fold, and I'm going to press that fold. So there we go, everything's looking hunky-dory. Now this next fold is folded in on itself, so I need to let's just move. I'm going to end up burning myself. I'm trying to do this in a very small space. So you can see we have one up, one down. Next one is right sides together. Next one is wrong sides together. Next one is right sides together. You can always follow your paper template to know that you've got your folds in exactly the right place. And then this one is wrong sides together, last one. It's also worth, as you're folding, just making sure that the sides match up as you fold and press, which will mean that your folds and pressing is nice and level, so you don't get wonky looking card slots. So once it's all done, just fold it all up and turn it all over and have a look. You might need to just pull a little bit. Rather depends on how well you've pressed. Sometimes I tend to press harder than others, but if I fold this up, you can see what I've got is 1, 2, 3 card slots. When I hold this up, you can see I have 1, 2, 3 card slots. And that top one's not very well pressed. Not a nice, neat, firm. And there we have it. Now, I just need to go and grab my Decaville because I've left it on my table. Okay, so I found my little strips of Decaville. I'd left them on my table. Now I'm just I literally use scraps of Decaville, so I don't really measure them that accurately. These are bits that are left over from other things. And the reason I like to put a little bit of Decaville is because you're constantly pushing cards in and out of these card slots, and sometimes they can get a bit flappy on the front. I just hate the look of a flappy card slot. I also don't like the way some card slots will gape, and adding a little bit of Decaville means that they don't gape. So we know which is the top fold of each of our pockets, and that's what we're going to look for. So we're going to go in, and we're just going to pop a little bit of Decaville at the top edge of each of those folds. And it just, I mean, you can adhere it with you can fuse it with your iron. It can take 2 seconds to do. So 1, this is optional, this is not a mandatory, this is a personal preference. I really like a nice firm, that one's probably a bit too long. You don't want the Decaville in the seam allowance. So I think 3 1/4 is the measurement that's in the pattern, and that is perfectly sufficient. You just don't want it in the seam allowance. So that's 1, 2, and then make sure you put this the right way up there, because this stuff sticks to your, this one's too long as well, sticks to your iron like you wouldn't believe. So there you can see, let me just open that up. You've got a little strip of Decaville along the top of each of your card slots. Right, next you're going to take your card slots one at a time, and you're going to top stitch across the top. That will also help to hold your Decaville in place. And this is Decaville light, not Decaville heavy that I'm using. You don't need to back stitch at the beginning or the end, because the sides of your card slots will be included in your lining, so they're not going to be visible. So that's 1. You do the second one, make sure you pull the first one out of the way, because otherwise you'll be stitching your card slots closed, not top stitching them. That's not quite what you want to do. And then the final one, which is the bottom one, and I'm top stitching here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, so it's nice and close to the edge. And I'm still using, well, I was going to say I'm using a self-coloured thread, but I'm not actually. I'm using the same thread as I was using on the outside, but given that the outside is green and the inside is grey, it's not self-coloured anymore. Right, so that looks really good to me. I'm really happy with that. My card slots look all nice and equidistant. Everything is good. Now I'm just going to pop a clip in the side to make sure that everything stays where it should be. And I'm just going to run a basted stitch up the side to ensure that my card slots stay in place. Now do be careful that you don't actually catch the underside of the card slots as you do this. You don't need to you don't want these bits to sort of turn over as you're stitching, so do be careful. It's just enough to hold the card slots where you want them to be. So that just, let's get rid of the threads. So you can see our card slots are all nice and securely folded, and they're really sturdy. You don't need the Decaville all the way down, but I really do think it makes a nice crisp card slot to put the Decaville at the top. So let's just, we'll now move on to creating the back lining panel.